Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, welcome to our today's training. Okay, let's switch our video off to avoid interruptions. So today we are going to do our second session of DHSA VSS training that ultimately after the end we are going to do a certification on the same. So give me about 2 minutes before as I prepare the materials that we're going to use for today's training. So in case of any question or any concern, you can raise your hand. Because today we're going to do a bit, quite a long session. So you guys can engage. So you can talk. So it will, let's make it an interactive session. Yeah, I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Shelton Kipkwech. I'm a tech support. I'm from the tech support department at Dahua Technology. So my contact is below, and my email, in case of anything, you can reach me out at kipkwech.shelton@dahuatech.com. So that is visible enough. Okay, if you cannot hear me or you've got any concern, you can get to us at the chat section, or you can raise your hand, then you can talk. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, last time we did a training on the DHSA VSS certification. So we began today's training is a continuation on the same. So we did a first part, and on Saturday we had a practical session at our offices. Not a practical session per se, because we did a bit theory. So for those of us who joined us on Saturday, they are a bit ahead on regarding the training. But as we move forward, we'll catch up, and I hope by the end you'll be able to do the exam, get certified on Dahua products. So the DHSA is a basic certification for Dahua. So with this certificate, you can use it maybe in applying jobs, government offices, so and so, because some government offices require you to have certifications on professional bodies, so that maybe you can apply for tender or something. Okay, by the end of the training, you will be able to know about IP, HDFCV system, and basically Dahua CCTV products, about 80% coverage. So for the basic knowledge, you'll get equipped with that. So the training is supposed to do basic CCTV knowledge, network. So we're at the first part. So we'll be covering for the first part, and also the configuration and training on Saturdays. So for those who will be joining us, they'll be able to get a better position. So the exam will be, okay, stop your video. Okay, the exam will be a theory and a practical. So the exam will be organized in our offices at Mikumi Business Park. Those are the two, practical and the theory part. So you're required to do pass about 20%, for basic knowledge, product knowledge, configuration 60%. So when you reach the certification part, we'll organize how we can do certification for those of us who want to do certification on the same. So you'll get to know which day to do certification, how many times can you do the certification, and the certification is free. And once we are done with the HSA, we'll now proceed with other course certification of DAHUA. Okay. So last week we did so our last week's training we did on the technical basic, we did an introduction of CCTV systems. So in our today's training, we're going to do basic knowledge of camera. So I had begun a bit about basic knowledge of camera, but I'm going to start all over again. Then the session is recorded. So in case you need to do a check maybe later, you can you'll be able to do so as they'll be available on YouTube. So we'll begin. So after the session, you will be able to get a basic knowledge of a camera, understand the important parameters of a camera, familiar with it. Because I think this topic is a bit core, and most of the information that are available here will be covered in the exam. So I hope you get to take note of the same. Okay, the camera will usually located at the front end. So we're going to do this section here. So we begin by covering this, then we move as we proceed. So the topology logically will appear like this, where you have cameras at your front end, and then you'll have recorders. That's the NVR or DVR. So for the IP-based systems, the NVR is the one of choice. So DVR is for the analog system. Then you have EVS. EVS is a DAHUA storage system. So it's a device, embedded video storage. Then transmission, do data management server. Okay, so we'll begin with the front end side. So DAHUA products, DAHUA cameras can be categorized based on the sensor they have, the signal that they produce, the resolution, that's the definition, and the working mode, that's day or night. So this document is a bit behind because we did not put into consideration our products like full color cameras, but because it's based on, for you to be certified, you just need to do the scope of this training. So this one will still be valid. Also, image, the camera can be classified based on image mode. So how the image appears. So we'll get into details about this information here. So the categories for camera. Okay, and also if you have any question, inquiry, or something is not clear, you can just contact me in the chat section, and we'll communicate. In case you need to talk, you can also raise your hand, do the same. So our cameras can be categorized based on, they can either be analog or digital. But for the analog side, you have two categories. That's the traditional analog and HD analog cameras. The difference between the two comes into the output. So the HD analog cameras support up to 4K, while the traditional cameras have lower quality. So you can see the name here, SDA camera. Network cameras use transmission. So network cameras are the recent one. So you can, this one use a standard RJ45. So to simplify, network camera is just an IP camera. So to identify the camera, you use the IP in the networks. So considering that you know the knowledge about basic knowledge of networks. Our products, we have a camera. The camera category can be based on appearance. So if you have seen in the market, we have cameras that have different appearance. So we have box camera. So these cameras, we have them in the offices. So like this, it has a detachable lens. So you can see it's more of the box appearance. So we have IR bullet. So the meaning of IR bullet camera is, you can see these small lights here. So it's this one. Yeah. So that's the IR. So IR bullet refers to infrared rays. So we also have for appearance, we have dome cameras. They look like this. And then we have eyeball and dome camera. It may be asked differentiate between eyeball and dome camera. So how you know an eyeball camera and a dome? You can see from eyeball you have two bodies. So you have this outer side, and you have the camera itself. So that's how you differentiate the two. Like this one's a ball, eyeball. Yeah. Speed dome cameras. So there's a PTZ and a speed dome camera. So we'll get to know why is it called speed dome while this one is called a PTZ. But basically the appearance, and judge from the appearance. We also have panoramic cameras. For this case applies to cameras that can view up to angles of 180 degrees or more. So we have small cameras, the pinhole, mobile cameras. This PIR is a passive infrared detector. So it has been included with the cameras because you can have connection of PIR sensor with cameras. So sometimes you might realize that you need to install a camera, and you also need to do some motion. Most of the cases, these PIR sensors were used with old cameras, but you can still implement them in new systems. Also have IoT cameras and PIR. So get to know deep about this special case camera while we dive deeper into the training. For normal cameras, the typical installation application for a bullet camera is a corridor. For an entrance side, you would have a dome camera. Well, for the corner, you can have a camera like a airball camera. So we are going into more into details about the appearances. So for a panoramic camera, so we have a fisheye. Fisheye camera will view angle of this one has a field of view of horizontal of 180 degrees. So if you install the camera at on a ceiling, you'll have a coverage of 180 degrees beneath it. So that's advantages for panoramic camera. The same applies to this type of panoramic cameras. It has 3 lenses and a sensor. So the image will be captured by the different lens, but the final image will be taken as one. So you'll have like a wide view. So a best installation of such cameras will be in cities, or maybe in region where you need to do a wide area surveillance. So we also have a panoramic camera with 8 lenses and sensors. So you can see from this point, this small, let me just annotate it. You can see from this, these are cameras. So you'd install such camera, and then at the end, you'll realize that it will be able to do a huge area coverage surveillance. So maybe something that you might be asked in an exam will be what are the meanings for the P and T and Z in an PTZ camera. So that's just a leakage. So for a PTZ camera, pan, tilt, and zoom. So meaning a pan will be rotating. So that's degrees, 360 degrees for pan. A tilt means moving up and down. So the camera, this lens will switch position between down side and moving upside. So as it's indicated here. So for the tilt, it will not cover 360 degrees, but to differ slightly a lower angle. So we also have thermal cameras. Thermal cameras, they can capture images even at night. So the advantages of thermal cameras will be that it will be able to locate an image, whereas normal camera cannot be able to view it in total darkness. So it uses thermography to identify images and do classifications for humans and various objects. So for thermal cameras, just need to know just the basic knowledge for this case for certification. But maybe in the future we'll do a deeper training, be able to know which applications, like you have thermal cameras for harbors, thermal cameras for sea, for border control. So the application varies. So we also even have thermal cameras that can cover even distances up to 20 kilometers. For this case, for certification, the working principle, these two topics, topic number 2 and 3, are quite good because it does about the core part of camera. So you need to get to know this one. So a camera is composed of different parts. You have the lens. The lens is the front side that you can see. That's the glass. Then the sensor. So basically, how an analog camera works will be the image is taken from the lens. Then the lens focuses this image on the sensor. Then the sensor creates a digital a signal on the same. So electric signal. Then we have analog digital processor, image signal processor. So this one just about processing the information from the sensor. Then the signal will be changed from digital to analog. Then the analog signal now will be transmitted to a DVR. Whereas so when you do an IP camera, so the same steps is the same, but as the output part, you will have a digital signal going to the NVR. So one thing, this is something that might be covered in the exam. One of the key things to differentiate between an analog camera and a digital camera is in terms of the signal output for the camera. So for the digital camera, you'd have a digital signal output. That's why you might find that you can have even a camera as standalone in the network without necessarily having a recorder. So that's just an advantage for an IP camera. The main difference between an IP and an analog camera. So if you have any question, you can reach in the chat section. So this is our first part for the training part. Then we'll do another session from the time that I stated. So the next session will be from 14:45. So we'll have a break from 14:30 to that time. Then we'll rejoin with the link. So if you have any question or concern, you can reach out at the chat section. Also, the video is recorded, so it will be available on YouTube. So we have covered, I think I've covered this information here about camera, the lens taking the image, focusing the image on the sensor. Then once the image is focused on the sensor, then processing will begin from this side. So the lens is basically used to focus light on the sensor. So we have covered this information. One of the important aspects of the lens you need to know is about for the camera, you need to know about the focal length. So different cameras have different focal length for different applications. So the focal length is the distance between the lens and the sensor. So the longer the focal length of the camera, the larger the image, the bigger the so the longer the focal length, the smaller the angle of view, the bigger the distant object. So the image will appear bigger, like appear bigger. So while doing maybe installation or getting cameras, you need to know which cameras focal length that you require. So there are different types of lenses. So we have fixed lens, we have varifocal lens, and motorized zoom lens. So a fixed lens, the distance, the focal distance, focal length is fixed. So you cannot adjust this distance to fit the image. So for such case, while doing a fixed lens, you need to put into consideration the installation area, so that at the end you have a fixed surveillance region. A varifocal lens is a type of lens where the focal length can be adjusted. So you can do adjustment of the focal length to best suit how the image will be sensed on the sensor. So the difference between a varifocal and a motorized, this one you'll have to do manually. So you have to do a focus and zoom on the image, so that you have the final image based on your needs. So a motorized zoom lens, the difference with the motorized zoom lens is just an automatic version of varifocal lens. So this one you can adjust the focal length anytime. Like you can adjust it from the DVR while doing continuous surveillance. So while installing it, you don't need to put into consideration the observation area. You'll just have to do zoom and focus the DVR. Hope that is clear. So the lens focus is to make a image a bit clear. So I think this the things that we can do in the practical section. So an important part of the camera is the iris or aperture. So the iris or the aperture is the opening that allows light into the camera lens. So if you have the iris just the same way like eyelid for your eyes, if you close it too much, less light will be able not see that much. So the iris, the bigger the iris, the more the light. So this can be adjusted to create a clear image, the final side. So we have different types of lens mount. So this applies to cameras, for the box cameras. So this applies to such cameras where you will have to do an installation for the lens. So like you can see from this point, this is the body of the camera. There's no lens, so you'll have to install this front side of the lens. So there are different methods of doing installation for that lens. We have C mount, CAS mount. So here, so we have a C mount. So this is the body of the camera. So a C mount will work with a C mount body camera. So this front side is the lens and this is the body. So you can have a C mount installed on a CS mount body of a camera. You can have a CS mount installed on a CS mount body of a camera, but you cannot have a CS mount while doing a C mount. So how you differentiate between different lens mount is from the board. You can see this size here. So that's the easiest way to identify which the kind of the kind of body the camera has, which mount the body, which type of mount the body the camera has. So you can judge from this distance here. Well, the CS mount is a bit smaller. Yeah, so this one's a bit bigger. These are a bit small. So for the cameras, for the lens side is a bit different. So you cannot just identify by viewing it, but it is usually indicated. So if you have any question or need do clarification on the same, you can reach at the comment section or the chat section. So we are done with the lens part. Now we are going to. So we are done at this part. We're going to do the. So we're done at the lens part. We're going to do the sensor part. So a sensor is the photosensitive element that will receive the image or light. So basically an image is just light. So we'll receive an image, create a corresponding voltage or current. Now the current will be used to do processing. So what a lens does is just let's focus the image on the sensor. This is the sensor. The sensor will create a signal, but the signal is usually very weak. So we have an amplifier installed at the camera where it will increase or create a bigger current from the small signal created by the sensor. Then now we do processing from this side. So you remember we talked about different types of sensor. We'll get to know what types of sensor exist and what are the advantages and disadvantages of different sensors. So the processor will do convert analog signal to digital signal. So digitals, the reason why we have conversion of analog to digital is because the digital signal processor can process only digital signals. So we have different types of sensors. So Dahua employs CMOS and CCD sensors. So I think it's something that you need to put in note into the difference between the sensors, because different cameras have different sensors, and you get to know which camera to apply. That's when you're doing core CCTV installation or CCTV configuration. So we have CCD, CMOS. So the difference is listed. So I'm going to do the processor side. So we have done with the sensor. This amplifier is not a scope of this training. So the amplifier is not a scope for this training, because the amplifier will dive into core electronic components and electrical and electronic components. So which is not the scope of this training. So for the processors that our camera have, we have a digital signal processor and image signal processor. So these two different processors focus on different aspects, because an image signal processor will be doing